It is sundown, somewhere in a river valley, 5,000 years ago. A man has been working since first light. He has hauled mud brick in the heat all day. His back aches. His hands are raw. And now the work is done, and it is time to be paid. But there is no coin in this world. There is no bank. There is no paper money. There is no little rectangle of plastic. Nobody has ever seen a dollar or a euro or a number glowing on a screen. So how does he get paid? The answer is stranger than you would think. Because for almost all of human history, nobody was paid in money at all. Money, the way you know it, is one of the newest ideas we have ever had. This is the story of how humans actually got paid, before any of it existed. Let's start with the story you were probably taught in school. The story goes like this. Before money, people used barter. You had 2 chickens. I had an axe. You wanted my axe. I wanted your chickens. So we traded face to face, and everyone went home happy. It is a tidy story. It is in almost every textbook. And anthropologists who actually study early societies will tell you it is mostly a myth. Because pure barter is a nightmare. I have to want your chickens at the exact moment you want my axe. If I don't, we are both stuck. In a small village where everyone knows everyone, nobody lived like that. Instead, they used something simpler. They used memory and trust. If you had extra fish, you gave me some. Not as a trade, as a favor. And we both remembered it. You owed me one. I owed you one. Whole communities ran on a web of quiet debts, kept in people's heads. Not, what will you give me right now? But, I've got you, and one day, you'll have me. So the first way humans got paid was not with an object at all. It was with a promise. Remember that. It comes back at the end. Now, as villages grew into the first cities, the promises got harder to keep in your head. There were too many people, too many debts, so people started getting paid in something real. And the first real paycheck in history was food. In the great river empires, in Mesopotamia and in ancient Egypt, workers were paid in grain, in barley, in loaves of bread, and wonderfully in beer. This is not a joke. The people who built temples, dug canals, and carved tombs were paid a daily ration. So many loaves of bread, so many jugs of beer. In the Egyptian workers' village, we now call Deir el-Medina, we have found the actual records. Bread and beer handed out day after day. Your wage was your dinner. If the grain was late, you did not check your account. You went hungry. And some of the oldest written complaints we have ever found are workers, furious that their rations had not arrived. Grain was so central that it became the first ruler of value. The very first unit of weight for silver, the shekel, began as a measure of barley. Money, at the start, was quite literally counted in food. But food rots. You cannot save it for 20 years. So people looked for something that lasted. And they found it walking around on 4 legs. Cattle. For thousands of years, across much of the world, a cow was wealth. If you owned many animals, you were rich. If you owned none, you were poor. It was that simple. Cattle were among the oldest forms of money on Earth. And here is the strange part. That world is still hiding inside the words you use today. When you talk about your finances, you might use the word pecuniary. It comes from the Latin word pecunia, meaning money. And pecunia comes from pecus, meaning cattle. When you talk about capital, the money a business is built on, that word traces back to caput, meaning a head, as in a head of cattle. Every time you say those words, you are quietly talking about cows. If you enjoy having the hidden history of your money quietly dug up like this, take a moment to subscribe. It is the only thing this channel does. But cattle have a problem. You cannot make change with a cow. You cannot buy half a loaf of bread with a tenth of an animal. So for smaller, everyday payments, people needed something else. Something precious, but small. In some places, that was salt. Salt kept food from spoiling. Before refrigerators, that made it close to priceless. It was so valued that it left a fossil in your language, too. The word salary comes from the Latin salarium, which comes from sal, salt. Now, whether Roman soldiers were ever truly handed salt as pay is something historians still argue about. But the word survived. And it remembers a time when salt was worth working for. On the other side of the world, another kind of money appeared. And it may be the most successful money in all of history. Not gold, not silver. Shells. Small, glossy cowrie shells. People began using them as money in China more than 3,000 years ago. And they spread. Across Asia. Across Africa. Cowrie shells were used as money in some places for thousands of years. Longer than any coin. Longer than any bill. A little shell from the sea passed hand to hand for longer than any empire has ever lasted. By now you can see the pattern. Grain, cattle, salt, shells. Humans will turn almost anything into money, as long as everyone agrees it has worth. Eventually, that agreement settled on metal, silver, gold. They did not rot. They did not run away. They could be melted and split into any size. But there was a catch. In the beginning, metal was not in coins. It was in lumps. So to get paid, you got weighed. Every single time. The merchant put your lump of silver on a scale, and you had to trust that the metal was pure and the scale was honest. It was slow, and it left a lot of room to be cheated. Then, about 2,600 years ago, someone solved it. It happened in a kingdom called Lydia, in what is now Turkey. Someone there took a small lump of precious metal and stamped a mark into it. That mark was a promise. It said, this exact weight, this exact purity, guaranteed. And that changed everything. Because now you did not have to weigh your money. You could simply count it. The coin was born. Later, the Lydian king Croesus became so wealthy from these coins that his name became a saying we still use. As rich as Croesus. That is how recent the coin is. Humans have existed for hundreds of thousands of years. The coin in your pocket is only around 26 centuries old. In the long story of getting paid, it is the newest chapter. So let's go back to that tired worker at sundown, 5,000 years ago. He was never going to be handed a coin. Coins did not exist yet. He was paid in bread and in beer, and in the quiet knowledge that his community owed him and would take care of him. And here is the last surprise. We tend to think coins and cash are the real money, and everything before was primitive. But the oldest money records ever found are not receipts for trades. They are lists of debts, clay tablets, scratched with a simple message. This person owes that person this much grain. Money may not have started as a shiny object at all. It may have started as a promise, written down, which means the number you see in your banking app tonight is not really so modern. It is the great-great-grandchild of a scratch on a clay tablet. A record of who owes what. The same promise those first humans kept in their heads around a fire at sundown. For 300,000 years, humans got paid in food, in animals, in salt, in shells, and in trust. The coin is the new idea. The promise is the old one.